my best friend and fiancé, shattered my life in silence, forcing me to learn the truth without a single confession. I never confronted them. I planned. I waited. And on the day everyone expected a wedding, I chose something they never saw coming, leaving everything behind on my terms. Before continue, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. That's free and only way to support us. Thank you. I never thought silence could feel loud, but that night my phone stopped buzzing and the whole world felt like it was holding its breath. My best friend Mia always replied in seconds. She was the kind of person who texted goodnight to everyone she ever met, even the barista who spelled her name wrong. So the sudden quiet felt strange. At first, I brushed it off. People get busy, life gets loud, and not everything turns into a dramatic scene. At least that is what I kept telling myself. The night before, Mia helped me pick out centerpieces for my wedding. She pretended to argue about colors even though she knew I never cared about table decorations. She laughed like nothing mattered. She smiled like she was happy for me. I replayed that moment over and over in my head, like my brain was trying to warn me that something was off, but I ignored it because love makes people blind. Friendship does that too. By morning, the silence stretched longer than it should have. My fiancé, Daniel, was already gone for work when I woke up. His side of the bed felt cold. He left early sometimes, but that morning felt different. The apartment felt like a stranger's place. Even the air felt heavy. My coffee tasted bitter, but I drank it anyway because pretending everything was normal felt easier than facing the truth. I tried to focus on wedding plans. My mom kept asking about cake flavors as if choosing between chocolate and vanilla would fix my life. I kept smiling because that is what people do when they are one breath away from falling apart. I kept thinking about Mia. I kept thinking about Daniel. I kept thinking about how the world can look the same even when everything is about to break. Later that afternoon, I found Daniel's watch on the kitchen counter. He never forgot it. That watch was practically glued to his wrist. It was the kind of detail that meant nothing on any other day, but that day it looked like a warning sign flashing in plain sight. I stared at it longer than anyone should stare at a watch, and tried to convince myself I was overthinking. I told myself people forget things, people lose things, people change routines. I kept repeating that even though the words felt fake inside my chest. But then came the moment that cracked everything open. I saw a notification light up on Daniel's laptop. His laptop never made a sound, never sat open, never waited for me to notice anything. And yet there it was, like the universe was tired of whispering. I didn't move right away. I felt frozen and boiling at the same time. I reached for the laptop like someone reaches for the last piece holding their life together. Sometimes the truth doesn't knock. Sometimes it just walks in. Everything inside me went quiet when I saw her name on the screen. Not a stranger. Not some random girl from the universe. It was Mia. My best friend since childhood. The one who once cried because her goldfish died and made me flush it because she couldn't bear to look. Her name sitting on Daniel's screen felt unreal, like seeing a ghost wearing someone else's face. My hands shook, but I kept reading because stopping would have been worse. The world slowed, but my heartbeat sped up like it was trying to run out of my body. I felt like someone had turned my life into a movie without warning me about the plot twist. Every line I read felt like getting pushed underwater with no one pulling me back up. I tried to stand, but my knees gave up on me. I leaned against the counter, staring at the tiles like they suddenly mattered. The room felt smaller than it ever had. Even the fridge hummed louder, like it was annoyed at being part of the scene. I thought anger would explode inside me, but instead, I felt empty, like someone unplugged me from my own life. People always say betrayal feels like fire, but mine felt like ice. Cold, sharp, and slow. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I wanted to break something, but I couldn't move. I wanted it to be a misunderstanding, but the truth sat right there, bold and ugly. Mia once told me she would never hurt me. Funny how people say things with their whole chest until the moment it matters. I kept thinking about every memory with her. Sleepovers where we promised the future would be kind. Late-night talks where we planned our weddings like kids playing pretend. All those moments suddenly felt fake, like they belonged to someone else. I thought about Daniel next. The man who asked me to spend my life with him. The man who held my hand when I cried at movies and pretended not to notice. The man who said forever like it was as simple as breathing. Now forever felt like a joke with a bad punchline. I didn't cry right away. It took hours for the tears to show up. When they finally came, they didn't stop. They fell fast and hard, and I let them because holding anything in felt impossible. I curled up on the couch and stared at the ceiling, wondering how a life can break without making a sound. But somewhere inside that mess, something else formed. Not anger. Not sadness. Something colder. Something sharper. A thought that didn't shake or tremble. Revenge doesn't need fire to begin. Sometimes it starts with silence. The next morning felt like waking up in a body that didn't belong to me. The sun came through the curtains like it always did, but nothing felt normal. Even the air tasted different, like the world knew something I wasn't supposed to know. I moved around the apartment like a guest who showed up uninvited. Every corner looked unfamiliar, even though I had lived there for years. The couch felt stiff. The walls looked dull. My own reflection stared back at me like it was waiting for instructions. Daniel walked in later than usual. His keys jingled like they were proud of something. I watched him move around the kitchen, acting like the world was calm, like nothing had cracked open. He talked about traffic and meetings and lunch plans as if I was deaf. The sound of his voice echoed through my head, but none of the words landed. I nodded along, pretending my heart wasn't sitting in a trash can somewhere. I kept waiting for guilt to show up on his face. I waited for the slightest twitch, the smallest sign, anything that hinted he knew I knew. But he looked relaxed, almost too relaxed, like someone who slept better than they deserve. I stood there, holding my coffee, thinking about how people can share a life and still live in different realities. He kissed my forehead before leaving, the same way he always did, but this time it felt like someone tapping on a bruise. I didn't break down. Not this time. Something inside me had shifted. The crying was gone. The shaking was gone. All that remained was focus, cold and steady. I sat at the dining table and opened my laptop. My hands didn't tremble anymore. It felt like my body finally understood the assignment. I didn't need proof. I already had it. What I needed was time. What I needed was patience. Revenge doesn't work when rushed. It needs planning. It needs silence. It needs the kind of calm that terrifies people once they notice it. Mia posted a new picture that afternoon. Her perfect smile, her perfect hair, her perfect habit of pretending life was sweet. She added a caption with a heart, like the universe wasn't watching. I stared at her face without blinking. The same girl who once shared fries with me like it was a blood oath. Now she looked like a stranger wearing a costume of someone I used to love. I didn't comment. I didn't like it. I didn't unfollow her. Cutting ties too fast would only make them suspicious. Instead, I slid my phone into my pocket and watched the sun reflect on the floor. It looked like a crack spreading across glass, slow but unstoppable. People think revenge is loud. Mine began in silence so deep it felt like a knife wrapped in velvet. The kind that doesn't stab. The kind that waits. Days moved slowly after that, like time was dragging its feet on purpose. The house stayed neat, the schedule stayed the same, and I remained calm enough to scare myself. Every morning, Daniel left with the same routine. Every night, he came home smelling like cologne and excuses. He smiled too easily. He touched me like everything was normal. I played along like a professional actor who didn't get paid enough. I started noticing tiny details. The fresh haircut he got without mentioning it. The extra effort he put into choosing shirts. The sudden interest in mint gum, even though he always said mint tasted like toothpaste pretending to be candy. None of it screamed guilt on its own, but together it formed a quiet pattern. People reveal themselves in small ways when they believe no one is paying attention. Mia became harder to read. She texted less, but not enough to look suspicious. She still sent pictures of her cat, the one she claimed hated everyone except her. She still reacted to my posts like she cared. Her messages came with cheerful energy that felt manufactured, like someone trying to sound normal with a shaking hand. I replied with the same fake warmth. Two actresses trapped in a play neither of us admitted we were performing. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't snoop again. I didn't search for more proof. I didn't need to. Their behavior spoke louder than anything. The more they tried to act normal, the more obvious everything became. It was almost impressive how betrayal makes people sloppy. Instead of falling apart, I focused on myself. I cleaned the apartment until the place smelled like lemon and denial. I cooked dinner with more effort than usual, adding spices like nothing in my life was burning. I picked out wedding invitations with a straight face, thinking about how ironic it was to plan a celebration for people who had already buried me emotionally. I kept going through the motions, but inside me something sharp kept growing. The funny thing is, no one suspects a calm person. People panic when someone cries or yells. Silence makes them comfortable. They don't realize silence can be a warning sign. Mine was growing like a storm cloud, slow and quiet, waiting for the right moment to strike. Late one night, I sat on the edge of the bed while Daniel slept beside me. His breathing was steady, peaceful, almost innocent. I looked at him the same way people look at a house before they decide to burn it down. Not with rage. With certainty. Revenge didn't feel like a choice anymore. It felt like destiny stretching its fingers. The kind you don't run from. The kind you stand still for. Revenge didn't happen overnight. It started the way storms do, with a quiet shift in the air. I woke up one morning and felt different, like someone had swapped out my heartbeat for something colder. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Not because I looked broken, but because I looked steady. The kind of steady that makes people nervous. I knew I couldn't just expose them. People love drama, but they forget it ends quickly. I wanted something that lasted. Something that didn't come with shouting or messy scenes. I wanted them to destroy themselves without even realizing I helped build the path. So I started small. I became nicer. Not just regular nice. I became the kind of nice that makes people suspicious if they're hiding something. I packed Daniel breakfast like a supportive partner. I sent Mia little messages about how grateful I was for her friendship. I left voice notes sounding cheerful enough to make Sunshine jealous. I think that scared me more than anything, how easy it was to pretend. The shift worked instantly. Daniel's smile got tighter. His eyes darted around the room like he expected a trap to fall from the ceiling. Mia answered messages faster but used fewer words, like she was trying not to step on landmines she couldn't see. Watching them panic silently felt like finally breathing after being underwater for too long. Meanwhile, I planned. Not revenge in the dramatic movie sense. Real revenge. Quiet, clean, precise. I went through wedding vendor contracts and made changes only I knew about. I switched the catering payment to his card instead of mine. I updated guest lists so his side didn't get confirmations. He thought everything was handled. He trusted me. That trust felt like a loaded weapon. I also started spending time with people I had ignored during the chaos. Old friends, co-workers, even the neighbor who always watered her plants like they owed her money. I rebuilt my life without telling anyone. The best part was how natural it felt, like I had been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. Daniel noticed. He started asking where I was going and who I was seeing. His voice stayed calm, but his eyes told a different story. He hugged me more than usual, but his arms didn't feel like safety anymore. They felt like ropes. Mia tried to schedule a brunch. She suggested a new place across town, probably hoping distance would make betrayal taste better. I agreed with a smile she couldn't see. The more comfortable they felt, the easier the fall would be. My plan wasn't finished yet, but the foundation was set. Every move I made felt like placing a tile in a pattern that only I understood. The kind of pattern people don't notice until they're standing in the middle with no exit. Revenge wasn't fire anymore. It was architecture. And I was building the perfect collapse. The first crack appeared on a Wednesday. Daniel came home later than usual, not late enough to be dramatic, just late enough to be suspicious. He smelled like expensive perfume that didn't belong to me. The scent floated through the air like a confession that didn't need words. He tried acting casual, dropping his jacket on the chair like it weighed more than he did. I watched him quietly, and for the first time, he couldn't hold eye contact. Silence wrapped around us like plastic. Not tight enough to suffocate, just tight enough to make breathing uncomfortable. I sat on the couch, pretending to be absorbed in my phone, while his footsteps echoed down the hallway like he had something to hide. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Watching him fall apart on his own felt better than any confrontation ever could. The next day, Mia canceled our brunch. She claimed she wasn't feeling well, but her timing was too convenient. I spent the afternoon drinking tea and imagining her pacing around her apartment, panicking over a situation she created herself. The image made me smile more than it should have. I felt almost guilty for enjoying it, but the guilt faded fast. I kept going about my life like nothing was happening. I cooked dinner, folded laundry, and slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The quiet inside me wasn't empty anymore. It felt full, like a calm ocean that could drown someone if they didn't respect it. Then something unexpected happened. People around me started noticing a change. My coworker complimented how relaxed I seemed. My mom said my voice sounded lighter on the phone. Even the neighbor waved at me without her usual suspicious stare. It was ironic how betrayal broke me, but revenge put me back together. Daniel, however, didn't handle the shift well. He became clingy in the most uncomfortable way. Random hugs, sudden gifts, unnecessary compliments. It felt like watching someone try to patch a sinking boat using glitter and tape. The more attention he gave, the more obvious his guilt became. He didn't realize I saw right through him. Guilt has a smell and has filled every room. Mia started posting fewer pictures online. No selfies, no cat updates, nothing. It was like she was trying to shrink herself into the background. I imagined her lying awake at night, wondering if I knew. Wondering if Daniel slipped. Wondering if everything was about to explode. The thought warmed me more than any blanket ever could. My plan wasn't finished. Not even close. I still had the wedding. I still had the moment everything would unfold. I didn't want chaos. I wanted precision. I wanted the kind of ending people remembered years later without knowing why. Revenge wasn't a reaction anymore. It was a schedule. And the countdown had already begun. The wedding countdown reached 2 weeks, and everything around me sped up except my pulse. I moved through each day like someone who already knew the ending to a story everyone else thought was still being written. Vendors called, flowers were arranged, dresses were fitted, and I nodded along like the perfect bride. The world saw excitement. I felt nothing but control. Daniel looked more anxious with every passing day. He kept checking his phone like it owed him answers. He jumped when notifications popped up, then forced a smile that looked painful to watch. Even the way he buttered toast became suspicious, like his hands didn't know how to behave anymore. I pretended not to notice. Pretending had become second nature, like breathing with a straight face. Mia kept her distance, which made everything easier. She sent short messages that sounded cheerful in a way that felt manufactured. I imagined her pacing her apartment with sweaty palms, waiting for the universe to punish her. The image felt strangely comforting. Betrayal turns people into their own enemies without anyone lifting a finger. I spent one afternoon organizing wedding gifts that had started arriving early. Boxes stacked across the living room like a celebration no one deserved. One gift came from a couple Daniel barely remembered, wrapped in silver ribbon that looked more expensive than our furniture. I placed it aside and laughed to myself because the world had no idea it was sending presents to a funeral disguised as a ceremony. My plan sharpened during those days. Not with dramatic gestures. Small, calculated choices. I changed the seating chart so that Mia and Daniel's parents would sit closer together, unaware they were part of the choreography. I notified vendors to confirm details directly with me, removing Daniel from every loop. I kept my voice steady, my steps calm, my hands clean. There was a strange peace in knowing the truth without exposing it. I didn't need screaming or confessions. I wanted the perfect moment. A controlled demolition instead of an explosion. I wanted them to watch their world crumble with a front-row seat they never asked for. At night, I lay beside Daniel and listened to him breathe, like someone trying to convince themselves they were still alive. His body looked restless even in sleep. His dreams must have been loud. Mine were silent and clear. I didn't imagine revenge. I planned it like someone arranging furniture. One evening, I tried on my wedding dress alone. The fabric felt different against my skin. Not like a symbol of love. More like armor. I stared at myself in the mirror and felt a strange strength settle in my bones. I didn't look like a broken bride. I looked like someone standing at the edge of something powerful. The world thought I was preparing to say yes. They didn't know I was preparing to walk away. Not quietly. Not gently. But with precision sharp enough to leave a mark that never faded. The final week arrived, and the universe delivered the moment I had been waiting for without me asking. Sometimes revenge doesn't need planning. Sometimes it just needs timing. Daniel left his phone on the kitchen counter before heading to the shower. He never left it unattended. Not once. The device sat there glowing like a secret that wanted to be discovered. I didn't reach for it right away. I made tea first, stirring sugar slowly, letting the air thicken. The phone lit up again. My name wasn't on the screen. Hers was. The timing felt almost poetic. Life has a way of writing scenes better than any script. I picked up the phone and scrolled through the messages. I didn't need confirmation, but the universe handed it to me like a gift wrapped in humiliation. Every message felt like a quiet punch, not painful anymore, just exhausting. I read them the way people read old news, already knowing the ending. The anger I expected never showed up. Instead, there was relief. Proof didn't change anything. It only finalized the plan already in motion. When Daniel walked back into the room, steam clung to his skin like a shield. He smiled the way guilty people smile when they think life still belongs to them. I placed his phone back exactly where I found it and sipped my tea calmly. Nothing inside me shook anymore. Not even my heartbeat. Later that night, I packed a small bag. Not dramatic. Just essentials. I placed it in the back of my closet behind sweaters I never wore. It felt like storing an escape hatch inside my identity. I didn't feel scared. I felt ready. The wedding rehearsal came 2 days later. The venue looked beautiful enough to make strangers cry. Flowers lined the aisle like a promise no one planned to keep. Everyone fussed over details while I stood there with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Mia showed up late, pale and shaky, like her body knew something her mind was trying to ignore. She hugged me quickly, avoiding eye contact. I noticed her perfume matched the one Daniel came home wearing earlier that week. The realization didn't sting anymore. It felt like confirmation of how predictable they had become. During rehearsal, Daniel reached for my hand more than usual. His grip felt tight, desperate, like he was holding on to something already slipping. I let him hold it, not because I wanted him to, but because keeping the illusion alive mattered more than the truth in that moment. Everyone left the venue smiling, unaware they were walking away from a story already finished. I stood alone for a moment and looked at the empty chairs and quiet lights. The space felt like a stage waiting for the final scene. Revenge didn't feel thrilling anymore. It felt inevitable, like gravity, and no one escapes gravity. The wedding day arrived with the kind of stillness that makes the world feel staged. The sky looked too clear, the air too calm, like the universe wanted a perfect backdrop for disaster. I woke up without panic. No shaking hands, no racing thoughts. Just a quiet certainty sitting in my chest like a stone that refused to move. People kept saying the day would be unforgettable. They had no idea how right they were. The bridal suite buzzed with energy. Makeup artists fluttered around me like nervous butterflies. Bridesmaids laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. My mom fussed over my veil, unaware she was preparing a soldier instead of a bride. Everyone focused on the surface. No one noticed the storm under my skin. My dress felt lighter than it had during fittings. Maybe because I wasn't carrying fear anymore. I wasn't the heartbroken girl curled up on a couch. I was someone else now. Someone who knew the truth and held it like a weapon disguised as patience. The guests filled the venue slowly, their voices blending into a soft hum. I stayed hidden behind the double doors, watching through the crack. Daniel stood at the altar, adjusting his tie like it was responsible for the shaking in his hands. He looked pale under the warm lights, like guilt had drained the color from his body. I almost felt sorry for him, but sympathy has an expiration date. Mia arrived moments before the ceremony. She walked in with forced confidence, like her legs were made of glass pretending to be bone. Her smile stayed glued to her face, but her eyes looked hollow. She sat in the second row, close enough to watch everything and too close to escape. The music started. Everyone stood. The doors opened like the world taking a breath. I stepped forward slowly, not like someone walking toward love, but like someone walking toward closure. Every step felt steady. Every heartbeat felt rehearsed. Daniel's face shifted the moment he saw me. His smile didn't reach his eyes. His jaw tightened like it wanted to lock itself shut. He knew something was wrong, even if he didn't know what. People underestimate intuition. Guilt makes it sharper. I reached the altar and took my place. The room settled into silence that stretched too long to feel normal. The officiant began speaking, his voice soft and cheerful, unaware he was seconds away from witnessing the moment everyone would remember for the rest of their lives. I waited for the exact breath, the perfect pause, and when the moment arrived, it felt nothing like revenge in movies. It felt quieter, cleaner, stronger. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I simply stepped back and let the truth walk out with me. The sound that followed wasn't dramatic. No screams, no chaos, just confused murmurs rolling through the room like distant thunder. I walked down the aisle without rushing. My dress brushed against the floor, whispering secrets with every step. Behind me, the ceremony froze in place. Daniel called after me, but his voice cracked into silence. I didn't turn around. Turning around was for people who doubted their choices. I didn't doubt mine. Outside, the air felt colder than before, as if the sky exhaled relief. I kept walking until the noise inside faded into nothing. My car waited exactly where I left it, like an accomplice with no conscience. I opened the door, slid inside, and started the engine with steady hands. Leaving didn't feel dramatic. It felt like finally waking up. Later, I heard how everything unfolded without me. Guests whispered, families panicked, Mia turned pale enough to blend into the walls. Daniel tried to explain something he didn't understand himself. People searched for reasons, but sometimes the reason doesn't stay behind. Sometimes it drives away before anyone notices. I didn't disappear completely. I sent the truth in the most effortless way. Not a message filled with anger. Not a dramatic confession. Just the evidence placed exactly where it needed to land. Mia's world cracked open first. Daniel's followed. Their perfect lies collapsed without a single word from me. The cleanup wasn't my responsibility. People destroy themselves when truth replaces fantasy. The funny thing is, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel empty either. I just felt free. Like my body finally belonged to me again. Like I stepped out of a cage I didn't know I was living in. The silence that once hurt now felt peaceful. The kind of quiet that lets you sleep without waking up in pieces. I moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, just a space that didn't hold memories like weapons. I bought furniture that didn't match and plants I wasn't sure I could keep alive. The first night, I sat on the floor eating takeout and realized healing doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives slowly, like sunlight creeping into a room that's been dark too long. People sometimes asked what happened between us. I just smiled and said life changed. No drama. No details. The truth didn't need an audience anymore. It already did its job. Mia and Daniel disappeared from my world without any effort from me. Betrayal made them loud. Consequences made them silent. I didn't block them. I didn't check on them. I didn't need to. Some endings don't require closure. Some endings simply stay ended. Revenge didn't give me back what I lost. It gave me back myself, and that was enough. If this story moved you, please don't forget to give it a like. And if you love emotional, powerful stories like this one, please make sure to subscribe to the channel.